Okay, hi everybody. We are very sorry about the technical difficulties that we've had, but we are absolutely delighted to be with you this evening. And thank you for your patience. We know that you could have been anywhere tonight, doing pretty much anything you wanted, and yet you're with us, and we're so grateful for that. My name is Abby Jacobson. I'm the rabbi of Emmanuel Synagogue, and I'm also lucky enough to be the president of the Interfaith Alliance of Oklahoma. And we're delighted to be able to bring you this, our third in what we hope to be a very long-running series, which is referred to as Amazing Faiths. And although Amazing Faiths has traditionally been held in person, we are lucky enough that we have such a fantastic and flexible team to be able to bring it to you almost seamlessly online. I would like to turn you over to Shannon Warren, who is the driving force behind it and the chairperson of the Amazing Faiths Committee. Shannon?
Thank you so much. I feel like this is take two because we didn't realize we weren't live. So I get to tell about Amazing Faiths one more time very quickly. And basically what it is promoting unity in the community. We're not here to recruit, we're faith neutral, but we do like to get to know our neighbors and their faith practices. So if you want to mark your calendar for November 5th, we're going to learn about Sikhism. Our friend Sarab Singh has been practicing Sikhism for 40 years. And it's been around, the faith practice has been around since 1469. So we won't go back maybe quite that detail, but I'm very excited and looking forward to hearing his presentation. And with that, you can ask, Sarab says you can ask any questions. For example, if you always wondered why they wear the turbans, we're going to find out. So without any further delay, I hope that you will go mark your calendars for November 5th. You can go to the Interfaith Alliance website. I believe it's on now, Andy, and it's TIA.org. And look on that front page or under Amazing Faiths. We're working on that as well. And you can register. So, and we'll provide the details. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn the program over so you can learn about Buddhism tonight from our friend, Reverend Chris Ladisau. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you to Abby and to Shannon and to Andy Lee for helping with the tech. I appreciate the opportunity to have this time with you. So I have a little bit of an unusual story in that I am not Asian, but yet I practice Buddhism. That is difficult for some people to grasp, but I will try to explain how I got to this point the best that I can. I grew up in Enid, Oklahoma. Some of you know where Enid, Oklahoma is. And I had a very good experience practicing Christianity, the Methodist type of Christianity. I had a very good experience with that growing up. But when I went away to college, I began to study some Japanese traditional arts, and associated with those arts was the introduction to Zen Buddhism, which is a meditative type of Buddhism. So I incorporated that with my spiritual tradition at that time, and eventually began to study more about Buddhism and learned problem-solving tools that were part of Buddhism that I didn't learn in Christianity. So I really liked those. I would say that's probably a large part of why I ended up leaning more towards Buddhism. And when I do speak to university classes about Buddhism, I jokingly refer to myself as a Buddhist, because I think you don't let go of anything, you just simply add to it. So I'm very much appreciative of my experience in my youth, and I also respect greatly all spiritual traditions. As an aside, I am also a board member of the Interfaith Alliance and have been for quite a while. So I really enjoy being able to learn about other cultures and spiritual traditions and get to know people from other countries. It's been very enriching for me. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that and also to be with you tonight. Some of you may already know that that Buddhism started in India about 2,500 years ago. As it left India, it went what we call a northern and a southern route. The southern route went down through Burma and Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia. And that was known as the more traditional or conservative route of Buddhism. Most of it is known for being monks and nuns, and people join Buddhism and receive blessings and guidance from the monastics. And in exchange for that, people offer a donation of food for the monks and the nuns' begging bowls. And that's a reciprocal relationship that they have in that tradition. So the Southern route is going to be more about the monks and the nuns, and they do believe that you need to be monastic to achieve enlightenment. There was also a Northern route that left India that went up through Korea and Japan, and Korea, China, and into Japan. And that was known as the Mahayana, or Great Vehicle route. The difference between the southern route, which was known as Theravadan, and the northern route, which was known as Mahayana, was the northern route believed that anybody could practice and study and achieve enlightenment. So that was definitely a big difference between the northern and the southern routes. If I were to break Buddhism into three parts, I would say that there is the Theravadan, the southern route. I would say that there's a northern route, the Mahayana. And then I would say that Tibetan Buddhism it is the third part of that, in that that's called Vajrayana, and it is its own very, very own practice. We have certain things that are in common with all of these types of Buddhism, but Vajrayana, and that would be the Dalai Lama group, if you want to connect with that. That would be the tradition that they have the teachings, they have practices, and they are very much masters of the mind. They really develop mental acuity in all areas. So if you wanted to break Buddhism into three parts, I would say those are the three. I want to talk a little bit about the historical Buddha, which is what you will find people in the Theravada tradition talk about. Only the historical person that's called Shakyamuni Buddha that lived in India 2,500 years ago, that is the teacher that they focus on, the historical Buddha. And interesting life story with the Buddha. He was actually a person that lived, and he was born into a very wealthy family. His father was a king and his mother was a queen. And as was the practice of the time, when a child was born, they would bring in a seer, a sage, and say, please let me know about this child and the lifetime that the child is going to have. And the seer said, this is a very important child. This child will either be a very famous warrior king, like the father, or a great spiritual leader. So the father, who wanted his son to follow in his footsteps, decided that in an attempt to persuade the child to follow in his footsteps, he kept him in the palace. He didn't let him out. He had a very private life. He had everything he wanted. He could have food, he could have drink, he could have entertainment, he could get to know women, he could learn anything he wanted, but he couldn't leave the area. So as teenagers do, he snuck out one night and he took a servant with him, and they went out one side of the palace, and they saw something that he had never seen before, which was a really old person. He'd never seen anybody that was struggling with that. And so he asked his friend with him, his servant, and he said, what is that? And he said, well, that's an old person. Eventually all of us begin to look like that. And he said, oh, that's not very comfortable. I can see how they're struggling. And the next time they snuck out, they went out a different gate, and they saw a really, really sick person. And he had also been sheltered from that. So he asked what it was. He said, that's something that happens to us. We all have physical bodies. Eventually, we're going to have illness and serious illness, and that's what it looks like. And the Buddha said, he was a very compassionate young man. And he said, oh my gosh, I see a lot of suffering there. The next time they went out, they saw a dead body, and he had never had that experience either. So he asked, of course, what was going on. And he explained that, we're all going to eventually pass away, and that's what it looks like. And that is a natural outcome of this life. And so the Buddha was a very compassionate person, and he saw the struggling involved in all of these different changes in our lives. The fourth time they went out, they saw a mendicant, they saw an ascetic, a very spiritual pilgrim, somebody who had, very unexpensive clothing on, and his whole purpose was to seek enlightenment or to seek a spiritual path. And so he asked who that person was, and of course his friend said, yes, this person is very important. They are seeking for themselves spiritual guidance and a good way of living, and they also are beneficial to the world because of the path that they have chosen. So at that time, Buddha was old enough to have married, and he had a small child named Rahula, a little boy. And as sad as it was for him to do it, his desire to solve this problem of human suffering became paramount for him. And so one night he kissed his child and his wife, and he left the castle, or the wonderful kingdom that he had lived in, and he became a mendicant himself. And he traveled, he studied with everybody he could, trying to find the solution for this suffering. He just couldn't find it. And what happened was, he even got down to the point of eating 1 grain of rice a day to try to starve the desires and the cravings out of his body, thinking that might bring enlightenment, but it didn't. So he had experienced the excess in life, and he had also experienced the opposite end. And he decided that he just was going to sit underneath a tree and meditate until he figured it out. So he did precisely that. He did have an awakening. He realized the enlightenment that has been there all along. It wasn't anything he created. He just finally realized it. And he got up from that experience. He walked over, took a bath in the river, ate a bowl of gruel that a young lady in the village had made for him, and he took off and he taught what's known as the first rolling of the wheel of the Dharma. And the Dharma are the Buddha's teachings. And they did that in Deer Park in Varanasi in India. And he, interestingly enough, taught it to 5 guys that he used to practice with, but they hadn't seen him for a while. So he became their teacher. He shared the enlightenment. He shared the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, which is a problem-solving tool. And he also gave them 8 practices called the Eightfold Path. And those 2 teachings were what he shared with those men there. And then he went on to continue his teaching for the next 40 years. He passed away at 80 years old, and he left the last word with his disciples. And he said, this teaching, just be cognizant of your practice. He said, let the Dharma or the teachings be your light, and be a light unto yourself. And he did not designate a successor. So that was how that was handled. In my sect of Buddhism, which is part of that northern route, it's called Ekayana, or one vehicle. The reason that that I like it, one of the reasons I really like it, is because we have a great respect for all spiritual traditions as being part of that one vehicle to enlightenment. In the text that we use, which is the Lotus Sutra, that was a unifying text because there had been a split in Buddhism. And so within the text that we use, the one vehicle is a unifying concept for putting all the types of Buddhism back together under that one vehicle category. But in the broader perspective, we look at it as respect for all spiritual traditions. So in my type of Buddhism. We have obviously a great respect for the historical Buddha, but we also have a concept of an eternal aspect. And it's not like a creator God that you find in Christianity, but it is an acknowledgement of the energy consciousness of the universe that everything manifests from. And so we have an understanding of that. So we talk about Shakyamuni Buddha. We also talk about what we call the original Buddha or the eternal Buddha, which is the energy consciousness of the universe. So we have both of those aspects. So Buddha, after his enlightenment, realized that the answer to his question of how to solve suffering for humanity was not found in the extremes. It was not found in total excess. It was not found in total depravity. It was found in the middle. And that's why it's called the middle way. There is a wonderful story that goes along with this about a man named Shrona, who was a musician, and he had a stringed instrument like a guitar, only it was, of course, a long, long time ago, so it would be closer to a lute or something like that. And one day, Shakyamuni was talking to him, and he said, Shrona, he said, what happens when you tune the instrument and you tighten the strings too tight? And he said, well, you run the risk of breaking a string and the sound is not very good. And he said, what happens if you tune it and it's too loose? And he said, well, the sound won't be any good at all. And so Buddha said, so would you say it's fair that you need to tune the instrument for each song individually, and that'll be a little bit different for each situation, and that the best music, the most beautiful music, is found somewhere in the middle way of the string tightening? And he said, yeah, I think that would be fair to say. So here's again another example, balance of our life. That's what we strive for. And it's not a static balance. It can't be a static balance. It has to be a dynamic balance. And we're always trying to find that balance point. So the extremes don't hold the answers that we seek for daily situations. We're always going to have to search ourselves inside and see how we relate to other people to find the meeting ground. If I were to say the simplest teaching of Buddhism that we learn pretty early on, it's this: two things. One of them is everything changes in this realm that we live in. Everything changes. Even the cells in our body change. Everything is changing all the time. So change is the natural order of this world. And that, if we can accept that and understand it inside, our life will be easier because we won't expect things not to change. So it's our attachment to things that wants us to keep things the way they are. So that teaches us about how we react and how we look at things in the world. So everything changes. The second thing I would say is a very valuable teaching to learn is that everything and everyone is connected. So I don't know about you, but I didn't make the clothes that I'm wearing, and I didn't make the food. I didn't grow the food that I ate today. So very quickly, you can see how not only nature that grows those things, that enables people, workers, to take them and create things with them. Everything that we do is connected, because I didn't create everything that I did today. Even the house I live in, or this chair that I'm sitting in, I didn't make it. So somebody else did. So whether we're aware of it or not, everything and everyone is connected. And when we understand that on a really heartfelt level, we appreciate each other, we respect each other, and that is a wonderful way to live. So I would say that those are two very important aspects that I hope everybody can have a takeaway from on our lecture today. Shannon asked me a couple of questions before we had this program, and I thought her questions were really good. So I'm going to review those very quickly in case you haven't had a chance to see those. The study and practice of Buddhist path helps us develop mental maturity. If you know anything about Buddhism, you know that there is meditative practice, whether you're chanting or whether you're in silent meditation. And so this space and time to self-reflect is very valuable because it teaches us about ourselves and how we relate with other people, and it teaches us that we have a choice in how we live in the world. Our thoughts, our words, and our actions, we can consciously choose those so that it develops a mental maturity. And I think that's very important. Also, I covered the fact that Buddhism came from India and spread out to the world. Buddha was a human teacher who became enlightened to universal truth. And we don't worship Buddha. Um, we respect the teacher who lived in India 2,500 years ago, and we revere the teachings, and we revere the energy consciousness of the universe that everybody has manifested from. So we revere those things and we respect them, but we don't worship them as a power outside of ourselves. We have the Buddha nature inside of us, which is how we're all connected, even though we look different on the outside. But we all have that spark of divinity. I think when I was growing up, we used to sing the song, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." And I think that's the same thing. So we just have to acknowledge that we have that within us. That's our true essence. The physical body is an important vehicle for us to learn in, but our true essence is our spirit. So that's the essence that that we would refer to on that. There are different types of Buddhism, which I covered a little bit. That she asked about a misconception in Buddhism. I think all Buddhists are vegetarian is a misconception. Of course, for monastics, that's going to be true, but for non-monastics, and I am from a non-monastic sect. Obviously, I'm a reverend, but my head is not shaved. So, and I don't have robes on. We stay in society and practice and teach. So that's a little bit of a different type of Buddhism. But I would say that I'm not a vegetarian strictly. I eat vegetarian sometimes because it sounds good, but that is something that is an individual choice in our sect of Buddhism, and different people think different things on that. Seriously though, if you have a begging bowl, you're supposed to eat whatever anybody puts in it. So I would suspect that even though the tradition is that it's vegetarian for monastics, I'm sure there was probably times in the world where people ate whatever was put in their bowl. So I would say it's a personal choice for us. And then teachings have the problem solving tools that I mentioned earlier, and that helps us resolve our own suffering. So one of the things that I really like about Buddhism is it is very much about self-responsibility, and I'm good with that. I am okay to be responsible for my thoughts and my words and my actions, and I appreciate that very much. So I think, I'm trying to think if that's a pretty good amount of information. Yeah, okay. All right, so thank you all very much for taking time to share this evening with me, and you're welcome to visit us at the Dharma Center of Oklahoma, either on Facebook or, come visit us when we open back up. We're closed right now. So I don't know when we're going to be doing that again, but contact me personally if you would like to have access to our Zoom meetings. And then when we finally get to go back into the facility again, it'd be really nice if you could come visit. You're always welcome. It's a comfortable atmosphere and friendly. And so we welcome you to share time with us anytime that you would like to do that. I would like to, at this point, turn it back over to Shannon. And once again, thank Abby and Andy Lee and Shannon for helping put this together tonight. And thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chris. That was very informative. And I appreciate that. So for those who thought all Buddhists were vegetarian, we've been straightened out. I was going to ask you, Chris, do you have an option or recommended study materials, websites, or anything that would be helpful if people want to pursue this further?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. We are so fortunate in our society now. There have been so many wonderful authors that have either translated themselves or have helped translate materials about Buddhism that you can walk into Barnes and Noble. You could go online on Amazon, or you just go Google Buddhism and you can find out anything you needed to know. So we're very fortunate in this day and age that we have access to all of the things that we do. If someone is interested in Ekayana Buddhism, which is one vehicle Buddhism, that's the type that I practice, please contact us through the Facebook Dharma Center of Oklahoma. We can hook you up with some materials that lean more in that direction. But I would highly recommend that just do a Google search on Buddhism and dig a little bit on your own and see what appeals to you, because there are definitely different types of Buddhism. And so you'll find anything you want. I would say there's so many wonderful books written by Pema Chodron, is a wonderful Western woman who is a monastic, but she's written some great books. There's been books written by Thich Nhat Hanh's group and by the Dalai Lama Tibetan group. And those have been written in English for people to study and practice with. There's tons of good material out there. And if you're interested in any of it, please do. And then, like I said, if you're interested in Ekayana, which is what I could help you with, I'm happy to do that.
I just had somebody text me a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So Steve was asking me, are there regular worship type of services, a specific day of the week, and what can you describe a service?
Yes, we decided when we started this group here in Oklahoma, most people here are used to going to church on Sunday mornings. And so we decided to use Sundays at 10 a.m. to be the time that we would get together. Right now we're doing Zooms at 10 a.m. on Sunday. The first part of our service is ritual. So we chant, but we chant in English. So we chant for the first half of the service, and then we take a 5-minute break. And then we come back in and what we call a circle of compassion. And if we're actually in the physical location at the same time, we sit in a circle and discuss daily life, and we overlay the Buddhist teachings on top of it so that we have a new perspective when we're dealing with difficult situations. So that's the second half of the service on Sunday. So ritual is the first half, and then discussion is the second half. Wednesday night at 7 p.m., and these are on Zoom. Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we have what's called Basic Buddhism, and it takes all of the major teachings of Buddhism that are common to all of the types of Buddhism and explains them in a very, very basic fashion. So that's available for anyone who would like to do that. I would recommend those two if anybody is interested in doing them on Zoom. And here again, too, you can send a message to a Facebook or our website, and we would be glad to send you that information.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Steve, thank you for texting me. I think we're running out of time. So just a reminder, Andy, is everything set up and ready to go for November 5th? You can sign up for Sikhism, and that will be November 5th, same time, 7:45. Saurabh Singh will be our facilitator. He's been practicing Sikhism for 40 years. So if you didn't quite hear me at the beginning, you get to learn all about it. There are no stupid questions. You can find out why they wear the turbans. So anyway, thank you so much to the Interfaith Alliance for hosting this, and very thankful we got through those technical issues, right? So Rabbi Evie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you, Reverend Ladisaw. We really appreciate both of you and all of you for taking your time today. On behalf of the Interfaith Alliance, we are proud to host the Amazing Faiths program as one of the many things that we do. We also have activities that help raise awareness and bring people into conversation and help people do thoughtful and intentional service projects in the community together, especially during those times when we're able to get out into the community together. In the meantime, I hope that all of you are enriched by the knowledge that we had today, and that you all were able to share a little bit of online community together and to know our Oklahoma Buddhist neighbors a little bit better. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.